I'm Veronica Dudo. Tonight on EWTN News Nightly, a fragile truce between the U.S. and Iran holds for now as both sides prepare for key negotiations in Pakistan. We're at the White House. Lebanon caught in the crossfire, the Order of Malta's mission amid regional war. Super El Niño is coming. The world prepares for a once-in-a-century thermal event that is already rewriting the laws of nature, what it means for your summer. Plus, the beauty of sport. The Pope meets with Olympic athletes at the Vatican, why he says the power of sport goes beyond the medals. These stories and more tonight.
From EWTN, the Global Catholic Network, this is EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you for being with us on this Thursday within the octave of Easter. Our top story tonight, President Donald Trump warns the U.S. military is ready to attack Iran again if a deal with the Islamic Republic does not happen. The current two-week ceasefire is under strain. Disagreements persist over what the ceasefire actually entails. But on Truth Social, President Trump made it clear again, Iran will not have nuclear weapons. So where does it all stand tonight? White House correspondent Owen Jensen reports. Owen.
Veronica, President Donald Trump is hopeful tonight that an agreement with Iran can be reached. If not, he warns, then the shooting starts, bigger, better, and stronger than anyone has ever seen before.
With the new ceasefire on shaky ground, President Donald Trump says the military is locked and loaded, writing, all U.S. ships, aircraft, and military personnel with additional ammunition, weaponry, and anything else that is appropriate and necessary for the lethal prosecution and destruction of an already substantially degraded enemy will remain in place in and around Iran until such time as the real agreement reached is fully complied with. And he adds, the Strait of Hormuz will be open and safe. Just yesterday, Vice President J.D. Vance warned about bogus, multiple 10-point peace proposals floating around.
You have some crazy people at the fringes of the Iranian system who are leaking anonymously either for propaganda purposes or because they're embarrassed or because they don't like what happened.
But as the 14-day tenuous ceasefire just gets underway, the United States, Israel, and Iran disagreeing on the details, specifically over Lebanon and the Strait of Hormuz, a crucial oil route which Iran reportedly mined. Israel insists the agreement does not apply to their war against Iran-backed Hezbollah in Lebanon and have escalated deadly strikes there. Iran reportedly closed the Strait of Hormuz in response. Very soon, further negotiations are expected in Pakistan, where today U.S. embassy officials met with Pakistan's government, expressing appreciation for its role in diplomatic talks. The White House has said Vice President Vance would lead the delegation for talks starting Saturday in Islamabad.
We have the Iranians promising to open the Straits of Hormuz, and we have a negotiation that's supposed to start this weekend. That's the truth. I think it's a good first step. We're going to see if we can make more progress here in the days to come.
Meanwhile, the EU's foreign affairs chief weighed in, saying she wants Lebanon covered.
Hezbollah has dragged also Lebanon into this war, but the response has been too heavy-handed. I mean, the civilians killed. It is clear the ceasefire is fragile, and we have to do everything that it holds so that actually the parties can sit down and negotiate.
And while urging peace, tonight, Bishop Elias Zaidan, chairman of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops Committee on International Justice and Peace, is calling on President Trump and global leaders to ensure the people of Lebanon receive humanitarian assistance, including food and medicine. At the White House, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly.
Dr. Kian Tajbach was held as a political prisoner in Evin prison in Iran for over a year and was released in 2016 as part of the Iran nuclear deal. Thank you so much for coming back on to share your unique perspective on this regime. So first, what is your initial impression of the ceasefire, and can this theocratic regime be trusted to stick to it?
Well, thank you for having me on. I think the ceasefire is full of ambiguities, and it's really not clear what it is. On the face of it, I mean, there are two interpretations. On the face of it, it looks like President Trump has reached, for the moment, a end of the road for him in terms of his patience and his ability to balance the considerations of domestic politics in the U.S., particularly the upcoming midterm elections and the unpopularity of the war in public opinion. Of course, at the same time, it seems that it's possible that for President Trump, for the Americans, and for the Iranians, the ceasefire could act as a period that they could both replenish their stocks, take a breather, and be prepared for another round of hostilities. So I think currently, though, the biggest takeaway I have from the ceasefire is the one question that Secretary Hegseth did not answer in yesterday's press conference, which was, does Iran control the Straits of Hormuz? And in fact, just the clip you had on just a minute ago, it seems that Vice President Vance has conceded that at the end of a month of enormous military assault against Iran, it's Iran that has come out with a significant victory in controlling the Straits of Hormuz. So, I mean, I think unless there is something in these 10-point plans which we haven't heard, that is to say, they're not the ones that are being announced, we have to wait and see. Unless that's the case, I think this is a very uneasy and fragile truce, which I'm not sure whether it can be sustained if President Trump wants to stick to his main war aims.
Of course, the Strait of Hormuz is a major point of contention. Now, looking inside Iran, we know executions of political prisoners have been happening over the past several days, also in March and just last week. Is Iran accelerating these executions, and could this lead to a civilian uprising?
Well, the first part of your question, unfortunately, I have to say that it is very likely that the regime is accelerating executions. They have executed a number of protesters that were arrested and accused of killing security officials and security people in the streets. But the problem is that there is an internet blackout in Iran, and there is no access to information by international independent human rights monitors. So it's very hard to get detailed information. But based on past record in which Iran does use executions quite extensively, and particularly in this crisis, we would have to fear that the number of executions is high and increasing.
Dr. Kian Tajbach, thank you so much. Today, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu authorized direct talks with Lebanon in hopes of reaching a ceasefire agreement. Israel was targeting members of the terror group Hezbollah who are operating in the country, but many civilians, including Christians, have found themselves trapped in the crossfire. Joining us now for the latest is Umayma Farah, Director of Development and Communications at the Order of Malta, Lebanon. First, can you tell us what's happening on the ground?
As we are speaking now, there are warnings about different areas on Beirut that will be targeted, mainly in the suburbs of southern suburbs of Beirut. So at any time, at any moment, there might be a strike, and we could probably hear it here, since I live not far from the Beirut suburbs. So this is the situation, our daily situation, waiting every time for warnings, or sometimes strikes without warnings. For example, yesterday, I think the whole world knew about what happened. In less than 10 minutes, there were more than 100 strikes all over Beirut in areas that were not usually included in the warnings, or not usually targeted by Israel. And these are Christian areas, Sunni areas that usually are safe, considered safe areas.
We heard 1.3 million people have been displaced. How is the Order of Malta helping?
So we have deployed all our teams that continue their daily work within the centers, but also reaching out to the communities through our mobile medical units, through our mobile community kitchens, but also through our centers. The staff are deployed to be able to reach the shelters So now today, as we speak, there is 1.3 million people that are displaced. 10% of them are in shelters. When we say shelters, these are schools, public schools turned into shelters. And these definitely need every kind of basic needs, be it from food, from water, from sanitation, from hygiene, from mental health. And so our teams are completely deployed today in 88 shelters out of the approximately 600 shelters across the territory.
A truly complicated situation. Now, what was your reaction as the whole world was watching about the ceasefire, but then to learn that Lebanon has been excluded?
This was very disturbing and honestly very sad news for us, because people, at least the people that have been displaced mainly from the south and the southern suburb, had hopes that the ceasefire was going to happen and include them. So as soon as the news of the ceasefire happened, people started leaving the shelters and going back to their villages, even knowing that their homes were destroyed. And so we were all surprised that of this massive attack that happened yesterday. And we all have question marks of why Lebanon was not included in the ceasefire, why the Lebanese civilians and the Lebanese people have to pay the price for a war that they did not choose from any side.
Umayma Farah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
When Congress returns next week, Republican lawmakers will face a backlog of several funding issues. Critical portions of the Department of Homeland Security remain shut down. This as the conflict in Iran is now costing about $1 billion a day. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales has been following these developments. Eric, what do Republican leaders have in mind to get this all done?
Well, good evening, Veronica. You may recall just before the Easter break, the Senate unanimously passed a bill funding most of DHS except for ICE and Border Patrol. But House Republicans rejected that plan, demanding that ICE and Border Patrol be included. Now, Senate Majority Leader John Thune and House Speaker Mike Johnson clearly were not on the same page. But now, with President Trump's backing, Republican leadership say that they are on a two-track approach, funding all of DHS minus Border Patrol and ICE, and then use what's called reconciliation for those needs, which requires only Republicans' votes.
We have two reconciliation opportunities. So whether we do the DHS funding and then go to 3.0 reconciliation, or we do them in a combination, it's obviously support defense first. Secondly, it's the war on fraud and reducing taxpayer-funded waste and fraud.
House Budget Committee Chair Jody Arrington adds there will also be incentives for states to implement voter ID and other election integrity measures. But this plan doesn't sit well with some House Republicans. The Freedom Caucus has already rejected leadership's two-step process, posting a statement on X, quote, "We cannot leave ICE and CBP hanging with nothing but hopes and prayers that Reconciliation 2.0 comes together. That's why we must use reconciliation to fully fund all of the Department of Homeland Security. Right now, DHS employees are being paid through executive action by the president. Democrats say Republicans' plan is another smokescreen, allowing ICE to continue its operations without reforms.
So that they can continue to jam their extreme right-wing ideology down the throats of the American people. So they can continue to spend billions of dollars for ICE to brutalize and kill American citizens.
I'd like us to land in a place where we get lasting reforms to how ICE is conducting itself within the United States, but it matters how it's written. It's got to apply to all sources of funding, both appropriations and reconciliation funding.
And bottom line, Speaker Johnson is going to have a very tough time selling reconciliation to all Republicans, especially after he called the Senate-backed plan, quote, a joke. And by the way, portions of an election reform bill known as the SAVE Act will face roadblocks by itself in the Senate as well. The president wants it passed by June 1st so that Republicans can turn their attention to the November midterms. That election we're going to be watching very closely, Veronica, because it could give Democrats control of the U.S. House. Back to you.
First Lady Melania Trump issued a scathing statement about the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. In White House remarks today, she rejected any personal ties to him, acknowledging only overlapping social circles.
I am not Epstein's victim. Epstein did not introduce me to Donald Trump. I met my husband by chance at a New York City party in 1998. The first time I crossed paths with Epstein was in the year 2000 at an event Donald and I attended together. At the time, I had never met Epstein and had no knowledge of his criminal undertakings.
She further called on Congress to hold public hearings, urging lawmakers to provide Epstein's victims a platform to testify on Capitol Hill. The U.S. fertility rate is at a record low. New CDC statistics say about 3.6 million babies were born last year. The rate is down about 1% from 2024 and roughly 20% from 20 years ago. It also reported that American women are waiting longer to have children. The Trump administration is using policies to try to encourage more people to have children. We have a lot more still to come on EWTN News Nightly. Setting the stage, the supercharged El Niño might be right around the corner. We'll tell you what this rare phenomenon could bring. And the White Sox honor their hometown Pope with a one-of-a-kind fan giveaway. This summer, a rare weather phenomenon returns with potentially dramatic effects across the globe. Rob Bradley, a meteorologist with Weather Nation, joins us now to tell us more about the Super El Niño. Rob, what can we expect from this climate cycle?
Well, we've had big changes in the Pacific recently. La Niña has been declared over. In fact, NOAA actually just declared that today, that we're out of the La Niña cycle, which has been in place for much of the winter, driving the drier pattern out across the west and the cold and wet pattern for the east. Now an El Niño watch has been issued. What does that mean? We're watching this region in the equatorial Pacific, this small region that's basically between Hawaii and the west coast of South America, and this drives climate cycles based on the temperature that this region has throughout the year. So recently these waters have been on the cool side, but they've started to warm up a little bit. Now we have what's called ENSO-neutral conditions that are present. So we're not in an El Niño or a La Niña right now, but we have a really good chance for a developing El Niño as we go through the summer months and into the fall and possibly lingering into next winter. So these are the probabilities for El Niño, and by the time we get to May, June, and July, we're at about a 60% chance to see that weather pattern develop, and that brings global impacts, not just here in the United States and across North America. This was the March forecast for that region of the Pacific, and it was averaging a moderate to strong El Niño, about 1 degree above average. And El Niño is anything about half a degree above average or higher. This is the latest forecast. As the new models have come in this month, they're now forecasting about a 1.5 to 2 degree spike above normal out there in the Pacific. So that means we're looking at the potential for a super or even stronger El Niño with a 56% chance right now for a super El Niño to develop. So super El Niño, anything basically above that 1.5 degree mark in the Pacific, and that's going to drive big changes as we get into the summer months and possibly into the fall and winter months as well. This is the temperature outlook for the summer, and El Niño usually drives warm air across the globe, not just here in North America, but we are expecting a very warm summer across the country, especially for the central and western U.S., while the Midwest and the Great Lakes may not see that much above average temperatures. Then as we get into the fall, into the winter season, this pattern really starts to take shape, where we get strong Pacific jet energy into the west coast, specifically into the southwest. So we're likely to see some wetter than average conditions for areas like California, the desert southwest, and that jet stream energy translates all the way over to portions of the east coast. So going into the winter months, we could potentially see drier conditions developing for the Great Lakes, but cooler conditions, and then wet and stormy conditions for portions of the south. What does that mean for hurricane season? That's the big question a lot of people are asking. As we see El Niño develop, we typically see a lot of wind shear as that southerly jet gets really active over the Caribbean and the Atlantic. So that typically tears hurricanes apart a good bit more than what we would typically see during a normal season. In fact, the Colorado State University just issued their first hurricane forecast, there's something that caught my throat, for the upcoming season, and their forecast is calling for a slightly below average season. So the one good thing about El Niño developing as we potentially go through the next couple of months is that we may see a below average hurricane season. However, as a reminder, it only takes about one storm to make landfall in the United States to have a really impactful season. Back to you.
A lot of far-reaching impacts. Rob Bradley from Weather Nation, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Up next on EWTN News Nightly, beyond competition, global athletes gather at the Vatican for an inspiring meeting with Pope Leo XIV. Plus, the Vatican unveils a powerful message for the World Day of Migrants this year, what it is and what makes it so special. Today in Rome, the bishops of the Chaldean Catholic Church began the process of electing a new patriarch. Last month, Pope Leo accepted the resignation of Cardinal Louis Raphael Sacco, who had led the Chaldean Church since 2013. The bishops decided to gather in Rome due to the ongoing conflict in the Middle East. They are expected to meet with Pope Leo tomorrow. Today, the Vatican announced that the title of the message for the 112th World Day of Migrants and Refugees will be "Even Just One of These Children." The phrase references a passage from the Gospel according to Matthew that says, "Whoever welcomes one such child in my name welcomes me." The Vatican says the Holy Father intends to express the Church's concern for minors directly involved in migration. The World Day of Migrants and Refugees will take place on September 27th of this year. Also today, a meeting of faith and sport was held at the Vatican. Pope Leo welcomed Olympic athletes from around the world in a moment of unity, inspiration, and shared values beyond competition. EWTN Vatican correspondent Valentina Di Donato takes us inside this historic event between global champions and the leader of the Catholic Church.
Pope Leo XIV is known to the world as the leader of the Catholic Church. But during his papacy, he has also become known as an avid sports fan, often pointing to athletics as a powerful reflection of faith, perseverance, and unity. Today, the Holy Father welcomed Italian Olympians and Paralympic athletes to the Vatican, highlighting how sport can bring people together in times of division.
Today, in this hall, we look at the cross of the athletes, the Olympic and Paralympic cross, which, from the London 2012 Games to the Milan Cortina Games, has gathered together the prayers, expectations, and hopes, fears, and sufferings of women and men who at all ages share their sporting experiences.
From the global stage to personal sacrifice, athletes say their greatest victories often go beyond medals. Francesca Lollobrigida, who brought home Italy's first Winter Olympic gold at the recently completed Milano Cortina Games, says her most important role isn't on the ice.
No, I think mother athletes, yes. Because, of course, when I wake up in the morning, I'm a mom, but I'm a mom also when I'm skating, you know.
She hopes her journey inspires other women balancing family and ambition.
Just doing this for the other women, you know, that maybe at some points during the career they want to stop, to focus on the family and then to come back. So I just, example, but I just want to testify that I was able.
Church leaders say sport reveals something deeper about the human spirit. Bishop Paul Teig, Secretary of the Dicastery for Culture and Education, says athletics embody values the world urgently needs.
Well, I think this was a very concrete expression of what the Pope had said in his recent letter on sport, life and abundance. When you look at sport, you see people who show us what we're all theoretically capable of. But in many ways, that's not just the physical achievements, it's also the teamwork, it's the resilience, it's the discipline, it's the composure in so many ways, that these are values that are important for humanity.
And for many athletes, simply being at the Vatican is already a dream fulfilled. Egidio Marchese competed in the Paralympics and is a wheelchair curler champion, competing on the world stage. He was left paralyzed after a car accident and says meeting the Pope is deeply personal.
I'm Catholic. I come from a Catholic family, and finding myself here in the home of the Holy Father, here, I believe it's the wish, the dream of everyone.
In a world often divided, sport continues to unite, inspire, and renew hope, helping us to look even more closely at the beauty, value, and potential of the human person. In Rome, Valentina Di Donato for EWTN News Nightly.
The Chicago White Sox are selling a themed Pope hat in honor of Pope Leo, a Chicago native and longtime fan of the baseball team. In a special offer for a game versus the Cincinnati Reds on August 11th, fans have a chance to receive a limited papal hat imitating the Pope's mitre. Those with tickets will sit in a designated section for the papal fans at Rate Field. We thank you for watching tonight. Remember, you can follow us on social media, Facebook, X, YouTube, and Instagram at EWTN News Nightly. I'm Veronica Dudo. Good night and God bless.